Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda, and this is the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
This podcast is all about taking action and creating that badass business abundance and life that you want.
Where we share stories, laughs, wins, and epic fails to show you the whole picture of the entrepreneurial journey.
It's not just unicorns and rainbows, people.
Jump on and follow us through this raw and witty roller coaster,
where we get down and dirty and go behind the scenes of life and entrepreneurship.
Get on it,
get over it,
and get after it.
Hey there, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. Today we're tackling brand archetypes, what that means for your business, why they're important, what they are, why should you care? Let's talk about it.
If you haven't listened to the DISC series, we definitely suggest for you to listen to the DISC series along with this, because it will help give you even more ammunition to move forward with really creating content in the right brand voice and understanding yourself too as a brand. So first, let's talk about what archetypes are.
A brand archetype it helps you maintain a consistent voice, a tone, and a messaging across all your platforms. So there are a list that we're going to go through of the different brand archetypes. And your brand falls in usually into one or two, sometimes up to three of these different brand archetypes. And it's the voice. It gives you your distinct personality. It makes it easier for your audience to recognize you, remember you. It helps with your storytelling. There's about 1 million things that it does for your business. But ultimately, it's really important that your brand archetype is congruent with the message that you're trying to put out there, and that your target market identifies with that archetype. Because just because you as a person might be one brand archetype doesn't mean that your brand is that brand archetype, because you as a person are different, we hope, than you as a business. Even if you are completely ingrained in your business, you're not always going to be the exact same thing. So a lot of time there's overlap, but we're going to go into some of the definitions of what each of them are. But basically, the whole point of a brand archetype is to make it easier for your branding and marketing, gives you your brand's essence, basically. So it's what sets you apart from something else, from the status quo, from what you have going on with your competitors. It's your brand identity.
I think it can be part of your USB. Think of it as the psychology of the connection. People buy from brands that they can identify with, that they can connect with, not just typically brands that they like. Yeah, it just gives you a stronger platform. So let's run down the archetypes, and we'll be posting them up as well, just to give you an idea of what they are. But there's tons of work on archetypes, the brand archetypes, and we tend to just use the top 12. So we have the innocent, the everyman, the hero, the outlaw or rebel, the explorer, the creator, the ruler, the magician, the lover, the caregiver, the sage, and the gesture. And so each one has its own unique kind of description, if you would.
Yeah, so it's kind of like their dating profile. Each of them has a different tone, a different personality, and they have the feelings that they evoke. So the whole purpose of brand archetypes is really to create a more consistent storytelling ability, and it just gives your brand a little bit more cohesion. And so each of these different brand archetypes brings out different descriptive words and different feelings that your audience will have. And then you can create a story to give your brand more depth and more relatability, depending on what you're doing. So, to give you an example of that,
let's start at the top.
Thinking about, all right. So the innocent. So the innocent is optimistic. It's pure. It's driven by simplicity, focuses on doing things that are right and creating a sense of safety. So it's all about, just what you think, like it's an innocent idea. So this is an example, literally it's in their name, innocent smoothies. And they really talk about being natural, being simple, and simple ingredients. They're friendly, they're trustworthy. That's their whole vibe. And their brand archetype is the innocent.
Yeah. The everyman is like that relatable, down to earth, jack of all trades, focus on belonging, prioritizes like everyday authenticity and connection. So it's you can see yourself, like they're just kind of there. And a great example is IKEA, that they offer accessible, practical solutions that resonate with everyday life. So it's very simplistic in a lot of ways.
Then we have the hero. Now, the hero, we all know what a hero is. They're courageous, they're determined, they're inspiring, they're overcoming challenges, and they're motivating others. This is a lot of brands use this, but one of them in particular, Nike, their just do it message is empowering people to push over these plateaus, go beyond their limits. That's their entire shtick. That hero motif, you can see it in a lot of different brands, but it's really going the extra mile, overcoming your challenges, and motivating yourself and others.
Yeah, I do want to make one note here because a lot of times when we're talking about the archetypes, especially the hero one, a lot of people bring up the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is just like a flow. And obviously there's a hero because people talk about in branding as well, but that doesn't mean your brand voice has to be hero. So just really want to make that clear because there are two different things, and that's more the journey that you would go on, right? And who is the hero in that particular story versus the hero archetype and that brand voice in which everything is spoken in.
100%.
Yeah. So next we have the outlaw or the rebel, and they're the ones who break the rules, challenge the norms, values freedom, embraces disruption and conformity. Cannot spit out that word today. And a great example would be like Harley Davidson, because they are like rebellious, and being on the back of a Harley is a symbol and spirit of freedom on the open road. And so they got that one down.
For sure. And then we have the explorer. That's the adventurous. They're independent. They're driven by discovery. And these are encouraging people to push boundaries and seek newer experiences. So a great example of this will be like the North Face. It's a clothing company that inspires outdoor exploration and the pursuit of adventure and going out there, doing that thing, going on the hiking trail, doing the long camping trip. They want to really inspire that kind of seeking adventure and going out there and discovering.
Absolutely. The creator is next, and they're more innovative and imaginative, expressive. They focus on originality and building something of lasting value. A great example of this is Lego. So it celebrates creativity and the joy of building with limitless possibilities. And with this, again, we want to make sure like there's the hero's journey and then the hero archetype. There's the creator archetype, and then there's also like the early adapters who are those that like to be that first person and that innovative. And again, those two aren't the same, but there could be a lot of creator archetypes in the early adapters and vice versa.
And then we have the ruler, which is commanding, responsible. They're focused on control and order, and they also seek stability and structure. You'll see it like Mercedes-Benz. They have luxury, precision, authoritative excellence, but they really get down to this brand archetype. It's not just that feeling of authority, but it goes even into the way they do the photography. They usually tend to use a low angle, so they're looking up at their subject matters, because again, it's that ruler authority. You're looking up at somebody. And so that's how, when you think about your brand archetype, we really want you to think it's not just saying that like, oh, I'm a creator, I'm a ruler archetype. It really is in every aspect. The ones who do it well, it's in every aspect of their brand. So the way they position their camera, the color choices they use, the fonts they use, they all have this. And you'll see it in a lot of these higher end companies. They really, really get down to their brand archetype because it matters to them.
Yeah, you know what's crazy about that? While I was listening to you, we've done this a cajillion times with archetypes, but one thing that this made me think of is all the ambassadors have either a Mercedes or a BMW, but essentially it's crazy. I know that they have like some kind of agreement, or I was talking about it a couple of days ago when I was in a conversation about how all the ambassadors have black, either Mercedes-Benz, most Mercedes, and some have BMWs, but that responsibility, that commanding of authority and control and order. It's kind of interesting. A little light bulb went off when you were talking about that. All right, next we have the magician, and the magician is visionary, transformative, and inspiring. It's about making dreams come true and enabling change. So a great example is Apple. They're known for innovative products and transforming everyday experiences, and even their story about transformation and being a visionary and that early adapter, right? We talked about the creator earlier, but the magician, they were the early adapters. They created these things. So this is where you see the different nuance in that particular, where sometimes people couple, because early adapter isn't an archetype. But I love Apple and the way that they continue, like Amanda was saying with Mercedes, like their graphics embody all of this. The way that they come out on stage when Steve Jobs was still alive, even though he was a simple man, in the way that they did everything around him was absolutely incredible.
They really get creative with using the full storytelling ability of these brand archetypes. So another one is the lover. This is passionate, it's committed, it's centered on beauty and lush and connection. And this really creates emotional bonds through the indulgence and aesthetics. So if you've ever seen like a Chanel commercial or any of their print advertisements, it's all about luxury and these sensual fabrics and elegance, and they're always just perfectly coiffed. And it's that emotional allure that's captivating its audiences. And so that's what the lover does. It's luring you in these lovey-dovey embraces. And even the color palettes, like these soft color palettes, like everything is driving home this brand archetype of the lover.
The caregiver are compassionate, nurturing, and selfless. They focus on caring for others and providing support and protection. There's a few that are excellent, but Dove is great at this, especially with their commercials that started, I don't know, probably about 15 years ago. But they focus on self-care and confidence and inclusivity, especially for women. Their campaigns really promote self-love, real beauty, emotional well-being. So Dove does a great job. Tom's, Patagonia, they all do a great job.
The sage is another one that's wise, insightful. We think about the sage, someone who's committed to the truth. The soothsayers, they're seeking knowledge and they use their expertise to guide and educate. No one does this better than Google. That's the trusted resource. I mean, it's become so synonymous with seeking the truth and finding knowledge that it's literally a verb now. Like, I'm going to Google it.
Google everything.
That wasn't a thing. I Google everything. Like, have you Googled yourself? They made it a whole word because that's seeking knowledge, seeking the truth. And it's a resource for this vast repository of knowledge and information. So that's their shtick. And like, that's what the sage is. It's finding the knowledge, finding out the truth. I don't think there's a person alive who doesn't know what Googling is at this point.
Absolutely. The gesture is last, and the gesture is fun-loving, spontaneous, uses humor and playfulness to entertain and engage. And a great example is Old Spice, at least the more modern campaigns, where it combines that humor with bold messaging to create a memorable brand experience. Just think spontaneous, fun-loving, just like nonchalant, definitely.
100%. Really thinking about archetypes, how is this going to affect your messaging style? How is this going to influence what you do? Lynn and I both believe that, just as I said with the Mercedes-Benz, it trickles down into all sorts of things. It's not just declaring that this is your brand archetype. It's in your visuals, it's in your font choices, it's in your color choices, it's in your messaging, it's in the tone that you take when you're talking, like when you're doing captions on Instagram. All of that can be in your brand archetype voice because it is going to be slightly different. I mean, if you want a little ChatGPT prompt to throw in there, throw in a random sentence and then ask ChatGPT to write that same sentence in each of the brand archetype voices, and you will see how different they are. And they will resonate with different types of audiences. So we all know that we don't all have the same target market. We don't have the same audience. And the way you speak to people, it hits differently if you're speaking to them in the way they want to be spoken to. We talk about the platinum rule all the time, like treat people the way they want to be treated. And the same goes with your archetype when you're thinking about your brand archetype in the voice of the captions that you use and the way you write stories, because people will start to notice your style and they will start to notice the way you talk, and it will draw people in who are attracted to that brand archetype.
Yes. Amanda said it earlier, your archetype, you're going to have one primary and up to two secondaries. And it is not who you are, it's who your company, your brand voice is. Even when you are your brand, sometimes there's similarities or sometimes it's kind of blanket, but it's who your potential prospects and your clients need to see. Again, we talked about the psychology of it, but it gives you more focus. You're speaking almost to more than one person. And when we say speak, we're also saying the graphics and everything that Amanda was talking about earlier with Mercedes, and I was talking about with Apple, like everything, the content, the branding, all of that. It helps you that one person feels seen and heard to identify with them. So you're attracting the right crowd. You're not just blanketing, you're targeting and nailing down who you're actually speaking to. And with that being said, it's also like words are powerful. Using certain words, I love what Amanda just said about take one sentence, ask ChatGPT to write it in the 12 different archetypes, and because they're going to use different words that will sit differently, either repel people or attract them or really like move them. You're able to really see the difference of like the power of the word and the messaging and where you can guide people with just the words.
And I also feel like it really helps you simplify your decision making. When you're trying to make choices for your brand for when it comes to marketing, if you think of it from the perspective of, is this clear to my archetype? It will help cut out some of the noise of like the color choices, like what your brand's true essence is, because there are a lot of ways to say the same thing, to advertise the same can of soup. And how you're going to stand apart is how true you stay to your brand's essence and staying to your brand archetype. So not only is it going to improve your storytelling and it's going to build that customer loyalty and really speak to a specific person, like Lynn said, but it's going to make your decision making a lot easier, because if you know how your brand says it, then you're not going to whiffle waffle around with all the other options that there infinitely are when you're making decisions when it comes to branding and marketing and even advertising as well. It all trickles down into the same thing. And if you can be a really cohesive unit of all those things, then all the decisions that you make for your branding and marketing and advertising become much more simplified, because it has to fit within that 1 to 3 brand archetypes.
Yeah. And you build this consistency, these little green flags, because you're talking to their soul throughout everything that you're putting out there, which is absolutely essential for a business to sustain, let alone scale. Can't remember where I read it, but I saw this term that your clients or potential prospects, I think it said clients, but potential prospects need a mirror, not a megaphone. I keep hearing that as we're talking about the archetypes, because I think it goes back to what I was talking about of like being less of the hero. We do this, we do that, we do blah, blah, blah. Instead, you are being a mirror in their voice in the archetype way. So you go from the hero to the guide, which is the hero's journey, right? And so you're letting them be the hero of their own story, and you're just that guide. I think when you understand your archetype, it really helps you put this into a way that is attractive and resonates.
Absolutely. I mean, it's about creating connection. And I love that idea that it's shining a mirror, not speaking through a megaphone, because it is. You want to have stories and personalities that are relatable and tapping into that universal human emotion and experiences that your ideal client is having, not that you have, but that your ideal client is having, because that makes your brand more memorable. It makes it more engaging. It makes it more relatable. And it makes it easier to be loyal to that brand if you know what they stand for and they are always consistent. And honestly, this is a great way to differentiate yourself from competitors. Like if you have a similar product or a similar service and they're always speaking in the jester and you're speaking in the sage, it feels different. And so it's going to resonate differently with different types of people. And so you're going to be able to weed out like who are your ideal people and actually bring in a much more loyal customer base. Because really, when it comes to like-minded businesses, the more you can differentiate yourself, the better. The more you can really draw on that unique selling quality that you have, that USP, that's really what you want to lean into. And brand archetype is a great way to get you that extra step.
And we talked about this in our 6-day Bangkok Badasserie. Is we're a perfect example of that, because we do a lot of the same things. Obviously, we have the Badass Amplifier, but for those of you who don't know, we have our independent businesses, and Amanda's one archetype primarily, and I'm another primary archetype. And so our verbiage and the way that we speak is different, but we could be talking about the same topic. And it's interesting because like, this is no shade to either sets of our clients, but the clients that Amanda gains aren't necessarily clients that I would work with, and probably vice versa. And that's okay, because those are her clients. Now in our Badasserie brand, yes, these are our shared clients, and it really works out. And when we put our personal clients into the shared pool, we can really tell when they don't resonate, because it's not that brand voice. It's not that brand archetype that they needed. They needed that independent one. And it's fascinating to see. And it's something to honor, because you know what? People are attracted to how we make them feel, right? Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And in branding and in marketing and in your content, how you amplify that is through absolutely speaking in your brand archetype voice. It makes people feel like it was made for them. It makes them feel like they belong, like Amanda said. I love it.
Yeah. And if you have not sat down and really looked, or even if this is the first time you're hearing about brand archetypes, then take a second to actually run through and think about, again, what's your brand trying to say? What's your ideal customer going to be drawn to? And see how your current marketing adds up. Does it resonate? Are you speaking across all platforms? That's the hint there, across all platforms in that brand archetype voice, because you may inadvertently be pushing people away and planting those red flags, as Lynn says, because if it sounds like one thing on Facebook and another on LinkedIn and another on Instagram, and then TikTok's over here, it does trickle down and people start to feel like you're not a genuine brand or a genuine company to work with or whatever. And that's not the kind of message we want to be sending subliminally, subconsciously to our ideal clients. So take a look, and we challenge you, like, look at it, see what are your top 1, 2, 3. Ask other people, what do you think my brand sounds like? Ask them what they think. Ask your top 10% clients, what do you think I am? And see what they say, because it's always interesting to hear other people's views and whether or not you're actually speaking in that brand archetype voice.
Share this with somebody who needs to hear this today, and leave a comment below. Let us know what your archetype is. Always fascinated. Believe me, we'll do our research. So if you put your archetype, we're getting on your socials. So if you want more followers, you'll get a couple more followers here. Let us know what your brand archetype is and how you embody that brand archetype and how that's working out for you. We're excited to hear. Until next time,
get after it.
All right, everyone, it's not enough to just listen.
Now you've got to put it into action.
We are so excited to see what you do next.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review on iTunes.
And to find out more about what we're doing, visit us at thepursuitofbadasserie.com.